right, welcome back. High-stakes diplomatic balancing act is unfolding in New Delhi. Just as new U.S. Ambassador Sergio Gor arrives, promising incredible opportunities and a positive spin on bilateral ties, India is quietly activating its Plan B. With Washington imposing heavy tariffs, New Delhi is plowing through a massive trade diversification. Deals with the UK and New Zealand are now moving to implementation, while active negotiations are being fast-tracked with Mexico, Chile and the EU. What's the goal? Well, a trade pact with every major global economy except the United States. In fact, EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen is also set to arrive on the 26th of January with a massive delegation, raising a critical question. As India builds this new global trade network, is Donald Trump's trade policy effectively isolating the US economy? Let's talk about that. Dr. Jayajit Bhattacharya, President of the CDPR, with us on the broadcast. Mr. Gautam Mukherjee, Senior Journalist, with us on the show as well. Ambassador Bhaspati Mukherjee, former diplomat, joins us on the show as well. Ramit Pal Chaudhary, South Asia Head, Eurasia Group, is also with us on the broadcast. Thank you everyone for being a part of this conversation. Ambassador Mukherjee, I'll begin with you. Well, like they say, one man's loss is another man's gain. One man's martyr is another man's terrorist. But in this case, it's Donald Trump who's turning out to be the loser. What do you make of, what's also coming out of the woodworks, whereby some of the closest people associated with Donald Trump have gone on to say that there was a trade deal that was offered to India, but the Prime Minister just did not call Donald Trump, and that's why they had to let it go. Is this what diplomacy and trade negotiations have been reduced to under Donald Trump? And is India being absolutely prudent when it comes to making sure that, if Plan A doesn't work out for us, we have other options, and why not?
Thank you, Vineet, for having me on your show. Actually, as the MAS spokesperson pointed out 2 days ago, in the 2025 itself, there have been at least 15 to 17 phone calls, one-to-one, between our Prime Minister and Trump. The FTA actually was approved on both sides, at one level below Trump, and on our side, up to Prime Minister's level, it was approved. It was a done deal. This refusal by Trump to sign the deal was based on several factors, it is conjectured. One is that we denied, correctly so, in my opinion, that we stopped Operation Sindoor because he told us to stop Operation Sindoor. We clarified this matter in Parliament also, because being a democracy, everybody wanted to know, and also the media. He was also miffed at us for failing to be sufficiently like a supplicant, like the great and powerful European Union did. And his view of India is that we are not yet economically or militarily powerful enough as the Chinese or the Russians, and therefore he wants to put as much pressure as he can, including on paragraphs, I'm told, in the FTA, which have been agreed to by the American side, on how much we can take of genetically modified corn for our poultry industry or for making ethanol, etc., etc. He wanted to use this period to put pressure on us, and he hoped during this period of pressure, the Indian economy and our rate of growth would fall, which it has not yet fallen. The rate of growth, in fact, is 1% marginally higher, and India's exports to United States are 15% higher for the year ending 2025 than the year before, when tariffs were not weaponized. So I am not saying if it continues in this manner, the economy will not get impacted. It will get impacted, but we have so far been able to divert and to make trade deals with other very important developed countries. The most important will be the BTIA, which is now called the FTA, on both sides with the European Union. Earlier it was a slightly more complicated deal precisely because the Brits were there at that time. Now we have a deal, ironically, first with the Brits, and the Brit model, I'm told, is acceptable to the EU. So we should, hopefully, when van der Leyen, German, comes here for 26 January, and we have the India-EU summit, the buzz is that we would announce the trade deal as a press statement at the end of the India-EU summit. If that happens, then we would have resolved the issue at least 70%, because European Union by itself, its economic strength alone is combined in as much as the US. And we have a robust relationship with them. If we are able to do that, and in the meantime, if President Trump relents because he realizes that he is damaging a very important strategic partnership for no rhyme or reason, and hopefully the new American ambassador has arrived and is getting ready for his meetings, etc. Maybe we can also depend on him to put a little bit of pressure on the Trump administration and on President Trump. So accept the FTA. Once the FTA is accepted on both sides, Vineet, there would be an end to this constant irritant, in my opinion, and continuously trying to finger India in so many different ways, in different ways. One day he says PM called him sir. One day the Commerce Secretary said that the Trump didn't sign because PM didn't call him and say, please sir, can you please sign the FTA? We are all dying in India because of lack of FTA. We need your generosity, sir. We need you to have mercy on India, sir. If that thing is going to come from us, I can assure you, over the dead body of 1.4 billion Indians, are we ever going to use that kind of language with President Trump? He wants to starve. So be it. We are not going to starve. We'll survive very well without it.
I get your point. Dr. Bhattacharya, well, we have a new envoy, but the big question is this really going to thaw the tension that has come about between these two countries? And, are these tariffs, is this disposition which is being displayed by the American president really a path to prosperity for the Americans? I was watching Fareed Zakaria's podcast the other day, and the last time they decided to impose tariffs on other countries was way back in 1929, and that's exactly when the depression in the United States took place.
You're absolutely right. That set of tariffs led to the Great Depression, which in fact also was a trigger for World War II eventually, because it completely pulled down Germany, and therefore it unveiled a set of political events in Germany, which led to the Nazi Party coming in, and they did what they did. So really, at that point in time, the tariffs were at the core of the matter. If you look at what's really happening between US and India, for that matter, again, is what the ambassador designate is saying versus what the US administration is actually doing, and they don't seem to be in sync. They seem to be completely out of sync. And also, when the ambassador is talking about incredible opportunities, one wonders how those opportunities will really be monetized, because for whom are these opportunities? Is it opportunity for the US, or is it mutual opportunity? And why there is a differentiation in this current post-rule-based order is because for US, what is an opportunity, they will go and take it. So if they are short of goods, they are short of services, they will simply go ahead and take it. And is that the opportunity they're talking about? Or is there an opportunity where there will be a negotiation in terms of equal partners? One of the things that the ambassador also mentioned currently, who's on the panel, is that India will not be sacrificing its strategic independence, and that will continue no matter what. So it'll be quite interesting to see how the US ambassador manages the optics and the actions versus what the US is actually doing. Now, in the post rule-based order that the US has unveiled, what we basically see is that trade agreements are being done in a manner which is lopsided, which is in favor of the US. If you take a look at the EU trade agreement, all goods of US will be allowed in EU at zero tariff, but the goods from EU to Europe or to US will face a 15% tariff. Now that's not really a fair trade. And the same format is getting repeated across the world between US and other trading partners. And wherever the US thinks that it needs something which it can't get through goods, for example, oil, it's simply going and getting the oil, like what happened with Venezuela. And therefore, it's very unnerving as to what kind of agreement we will be signing in, and if that agreement will ever be held up in its either its letter or its spirit, because we already have an agreement. There is a WTO agreement in place where all the signatories are there, and all the actions in terms of trade, including the usurious tariffs that have been put in by US, are actually in violation of the WTO agreement. So, what is the point in even having an agreement? I'm really wondering, we have been talking about the BTA, the bilateral trade agreement, the historic partnership, the energy for deal. Well, what is it that we're going to sign, and what does it mean? If it's not going to be upheld and there is no court of law globally where it can be brought up, then what's the point of signing any of this? Now, it's also very ironic to hear the word historic partnership. Well, the US and India did have a historic partnership, especially since 2000 onwards, when the US did put a tremendous amount of effort and energy in bringing up and shoring up its relationship with India. That has been trashed very, very quickly. And we see the US actually going around supporting stolen elections in the border areas of or the border countries of India. We are seeing them propping up undemocratic governments. Now, what kind of partnership is that? And therefore, there are a lot of question marks that comes up that what is it that the US ambassador is really trying to hint at, because none of his words are getting matched with the actions from the US side. From an Indian perspective, clearly we are working towards a plan B. In fact, it's not even the plan B, it's really plan A, where we wanted to have a free trade agreement with most of the world. And we already have an agreement with UK. We are pretty close to having an agreement with EU, with New Zealand, and so on and so forth, including Mexico, which is really the NAFTA area. And at the end of it, what we will really see is that India has got a trade agreement with most of the key economies except the US and China. And it'll be very interesting to see how that pans out. And that's going to mirror what every other major economy is doing, because some of these agreements with US is really a non-agreement, where it's a one-sided agreement. So it's going to be very, very interesting. It's a very challenging scenario that the the US ambassador is going to walk into. And I think all of us will be watching what happens from here onwards.
All right, Gautam, what's been your observation about what's been going on for the past few days? Mr. Lutnick, in fact, went on to say that Prime Minister Modi did not call Donald Trump, and that is why there is no deal now. But it's hard to digest that this is the standard that we have descended to when it comes to all these deals. In fact, Donald Trump continues to mock India. He continues to mock the system, and he continues to mortify us in one way or the other when he talks about any kind of a trade deal. Now the question is, should we even be getting into a trade agreement with the Americans? Because even if we do, I'm sure it's going to be riddled with complexities.
Well, Vineet, one of the things we have to bear in mind is, for example, take defense. Now in defense, Russia may be offering us the moon, but they are hard pressed to deliver because they are suffering sanctions that make their value chain, defunct. They cannot complete a project because they can't get the component parts. France is pressing, breathing down our necks to buy the Rafale, but they won't give over any of the technology. The ones that we can get technology from are not exactly a good fit. France could be, but France is not handing over. They want to do a joint development of an engine that will take a long time. So we are in some ways constrained to play ball with the Americans, particularly with regard to our fighter program. Now, as far as this Lutnick business, uh, my guess is that they had agreed to what they want. And they put it in the agreement and said, yeah, this is good for us. Now, if Mr. Modi didn't call Mr. Trump, it is because there was something in that final agreement which did not go with what India wanted, and they have ignored what India wanted and want to somehow put the blame on us. Now, eventually we will get an agreement. I have no doubt about it. But if we continue with what you've called Plan B and succeed more and more with multiple countries in North America, South America, Europe, Africa, the Far East, and so on, then we are making the best out of our present circumstances. At the moment, the other thing to remember is that I think in addition to Venezuela, both Greenland and Iran are on the attack map. Now, so to a certain extent, the American attention has shifted to taking over these two countries and arranging. In Greenland's case, it's an outright takeover. I think they'll be attacking it any day now. Never mind NATO, never mind Denmark. As far as Iran goes, I think they're proceeding very well with the protest movement, which America is probably financing. Now, it isn't really about America needing any of this oil from Iran or Venezuela, but it is very much about keeping the oil not reaching China, because China is not only buying extensively from both these countries, but it is paying for it in yuan, which is threatening the global dollar, the dollar trade, and so things of that order. India is under pressure to not buy Russian oil. This 500% tariff is about the Ukraine war. So we will have to mosey along, playing as much diplomacy with America as possible, because our other alternatives are not perfect. They are all contributory to our keeping our head above water, but they are not a substitute, and Trump will not be there forever. Vineet.
Well, that's a good, very introspective sign of Gotham, that Trump will not be there forever. Pramit?
He's outlasted him. It's Somnath Temple again.
but J.D. Vance is going to be there. Marco Rubio is going to be there.
But he won't be the same without Trump breathing down his neck.
Well,
J.D. Vance is not a madman like Trump.
Well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree now, does it? Pramit, what are your thoughts on whatever you've heard so far?
Switched his views more than once. Let's remember that. And he's a young man. And he's got a long way to go. And he's good for 2 terms. He can't do a Trump.
Okay. All right. Well, there's hope in what you have said. Finally, Pramit, how do you respond to what you've heard and this, this evolving scenario?
So we have to differentiate. I think there are schools within, I think correctly view that there's a schools within the MAGA system in America. They both basically agree on being an isolationist foreign policy, a more transactional foreign policy. But after that, you can see very clear disagreements. J.D. Vance, and you see his speech in Jaipur, but also from what I've heard he's privately told people, he believes that India is actually a country that America needs a relationship with, because his school is very anti-Chinese. And therefore India fits in. It doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't believe India is an excessively protectionist nation. But he is not concerned, obviously, about winning a Nobel Peace Prize. He's not concerned about our relationship with Pakistan. And the school that he's from is basically of that, remains reasonably clear that some form of a strategic relationship, though a more transactional one, with India remains important. Trump has a much more personalized way of looking at these things, and a lot of what he does, his broad foreign policy has, should we say, these strange personal bits and pieces, which are often don't necessarily make a coherent strategy. One is his obsession with the Nobel Peace Prize. But it's also very clear, I would argue, that one of the problems we have now with Trump and our FTA, from what I understand, we've actually concluded an FTA with America 4 times. Our negotiators have completed. The American negotiators said this is perfectly fine and sent it up to Trump, and Trump has come back and said, no, I want something more, often not related to the trade agreement at all, right? Including Modi should ring me up, Modi should endorse me for a Nobel Peace Prize, and additional things which have nothing to do with anything at all. So that type of whimsy I don't see any other previous US president will do in the future or has in the recent past. So that is something that is specific to President Trump. So to some degree, we have to, yes, ride him out, if you wish. And much of what we're doing with the FTA, India, unlike other countries, has negotiated a full legal text. It is not a simple, 6-line outline, which is what a lot of other countries have done. We have done it on the assumption that this will be the text that even future US governments will, for the most part, define our relationship with the United States in terms of trade, technology, and investment. And that's one of the reasons we're prepared to be tough about this, because we believe it will survive beyond Trump. So yes, we have that. But keep in mind, this America will be more isolationist. It will be more transactional. But to some degree, because we were never an American treaty ally, and because we were never part of an FTA structure, unlike, let's say, the Europeans with the Americans, or a tight economic relationship, we have a degree of leeway on this. But I would tend to agree, yes, we cannot walk away from the United States. It is our largest source, not just trade, it is our largest source of FDI, our largest source of foreign portfolio investment, our largest source of service exports. I mean, the real story in Indian trade is not goods, it has been service exports. And it is our largest source of remittances. Our economy is very deeply tied in with the United States. But keep in mind, Trump has not hit us on service exports. I mean, forget about goods. We are by far a huge $60–70 billion trade surplus with America in services. Trump has completely ignored that. So it's pretty clear that he may have problems with India, and I think a lot of that, as I said, is highly personalized about Modi rather than anything else. But he has not really pulled out the biggest cannons that he can fire at the Indian economy. And what is also more interesting, I would argue, that in the midst of all this, the biggest US companies are announcing massive investments in India. They simply don't care. You've seen Google, you've seen Microsoft, you've seen Amazon, $60–80 billion of investments have been announced for India. What FTA? Who cares? And I would argue they're looking at the President Trump and saying he's not going to be around. Potentially even after November, he will be effectively a lame duck president if he loses the House. So you can see a lot of the other parts of the United States system just functioning as if their president is not a matter of concern. And to some degree, India is doing the same thing. And from what I've heard, we've now told the Americans, we've given you a final offer, take it or leave it, and we'll see what we happen. And that's what the new US ambassador's job is going to be, is to bridge that last gap, which a lot of it is going to be about the personality issues rather than the actual trade agreement.
All right. That also, in fact, instills hope that, there is not much to worry about. Ambassador Mukherjee, would you like to respond to what Pramit has said, that regardless of an FTA, the investment in India by the Americans continues? The GCC ecosystem, which is the Global Capability Center ecosystem, also is being facilitated to a large extent. In fact, that space has gotten busier, than ever before after Trump announced these tariffs. So obviously, the market is in no mood to exclude India.
I fully agree with Pramit. I always do, actually, because he speaks so much of sense and he has so much knowledge about the US. I'd just like to add one more thing, which is that the statistics that I read this morning, it seems that although we have kept our growth pattern and our exports have increased to USA, the American economy is not doing well. And now I can understand the linkage, thanks to Dr. Bhattacharya, which is that he may be responsible ultimately for pushing the United States into depression, because another famous economist told me, Vineet, that the tariffs which he has introduced may make the American corporate sector lazy and uncompetitive, and they may want this to continue for a while, because if you put so much of tariffs on your trading partners and have no tariffs for yourself, which means it's a totally unfair world of 0% versus 100%, totally ignoring the WTO as if it doesn't exist at all, pushing America into isolationism in this way is not going to make the American economy great. And in fact, even with Venezuelan oil, the major oil companies whom he met yesterday, they told him that they don't want to invest in Venezuela. Right now, one of the biggest company CEOs told him to his face, very brave man, I must say. I wonder whether he's of Indian origin. He said that, Mr. President, he didn't use the word sir, Mr. President, Venezuela right now is uninvestable. I'm not sure whether that's good English, but we all understood that. They can't afford to go into Venezuela right now and spend billions of dollars to repair the infrastructure over 3 years, after which Trump is gone, and the Venezuelans can tell them to go to hell. Or in the meantime, some Americans can get kidnapped and murdered in Venezuela, and then what happens to his MAGA base? They'll be furious. There's one thing which both sides of the MAGA base agree on, which is America does not like body bags. That's not a problem India has, or China has, or Russia has. Americans have never liked body bags. That has always affected the popularity rating of a president. So I think that we have to continue with take it or leave it kind of policy. The American side, I was told, was quite content with what we had finally agreed upon. Trump is holding it up. In the meantime, we should conclude as many deals as we can with others and continue our multi-dimensional relationship with United States because of the huge diaspora. As far as Vance is concerned, while I agree with my co-panelist that he's not as mad as Trump, some of the statements he's made make me very uneasy. Like he has said that United States is a white Christian country. That's amazing coming from him when he has a Hindu wife and 3 children from her. He may be white. The 3 children will not be fully white. They have also their mother's DNA. So it's amazing that he can make such a statement just to get votes and win the election. After he wins the election, his wife is better qualified than him. She studied in Ivy League colleges. She's a very, very smart Indian. He is much less smart than her. We have to watch and wait and see what will be his attitude towards India. Will it be personalized because he has a problem with his wife being smarter than him? Will it be personalized because he refuses to convert to Christianity? So I'm not so sure that J.D. Vance will be so good for us, but I agree with my co-panelist that whatever he is, he will be better than Trump. So as far as I'm concerned, let anybody come. Whoever is that person, man or woman, cannot be for India like Trump. That's my final word on this subject, Vineet. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, good points and good prospects have been discussed on this conversation, and the situation is obviously not as bad as a number of naysayers make it out to be. India and America, of course, have had their differences, but their equation still holds a lot of metal, and I'm sure both the countries realize that. We'll take a short break now. We'll be right back.